Good afternoon. My name is Francisco Betancourt, and in this presentation, I'm going to reflect on a workplace incident where I served as the incident commander during a toxic chemical release involving chlorine at a water treatment facility. This event occurred on August 18th, 2022 at approximately 12:30 p.m. on a warm, dry afternoon. At the time, there were about 400 workers on site, and because this is a small town workforce, multiple family members were working on the site. The facility is located on the west end of a small town of roughly 3,500 residents, which meant community protection and public messaging were immediate priorities. Within minutes, the media had arrived, adding another layer of complexity. And the outcome was positive during this tragic event. No fatalities, um, and this is due to our response, which was disciplined, rapid, and grounded, and established emergency management principles. I'm going to walk through the incident in chronological order, and along the way, I'll directly address six items: the priorities that dictated my actions, the references I relied on, my support team and leadership approach, how I handled the media, the leadership strengths I depended on in high emotion environment, and the key lessons I learned. At 12:30 p.m., an operations team member reported that a large chlorine tank had sprung a leak. In that moment, my first action as incident commander was to apply the standard incident management priorities. Number one, life safety of my employees as well as the public. Number two, incident stabilization. Stop, slow the release, prevent escalation. Three, property and environmental protection. By midday, I knew that the site conditions were working against us. Employees were likely moving between buildings, breaking for lunch, operating equipment, and possibly conducting routine maintenance. This means that more people could have been in open areas and travel paths. Also, chlorine is especially dangerous because it's a toxic inhalation hazard, and it could also be corrosive. It's a vapor. Its vapor behavior can place people at risk quickly if the plume moves into occupied spaces, or low-lying areas, confined spaces, etc. So my immediate priorities became very specific: confirm the hazard and isolate the area, control movement, and prevent additional exposures, account for all personnel, employees, make sure that they're all accounted for, um, protect the nearby community. Obviously, this is a small community. There's going to be neighborhoods around the area, uh, public spaces, establish command structure and communications to maintain control. Within the first couple minutes, I ordered the following initial actions: activate the facility alarm notifications process and initiate our emergency action plan, establish an incident commander post in a safe location, upwind, uphill, so the command function wasn't operating inside the hazard footprint. So ideally in the cold zone is where we're going to set up our ICP. Request 911 response and mutual aid with hazmat capabilities because chlorine releases can exceed facility resources quickly. We got to make sure we get the fire department out there. They're especially going to be equipped with situations like this. Verify wind direction and conditions using site wind windsocks and handheld weather tools. This mattered because chlorine vapors can move and collect in low areas. Next, we moved into immediate protection mode for 400 people. I directed an orderly evacuation of affected areas to upwind, crosswind muster points, while simultaneously excuse me, evaluating whether any groups would be safer under temporary shelter in place depending on their location relative to the plume. So, depending on the wind direction, we'll put a shelter in place. If the plume is heading uh, upwind, um, we'll just make sure that everyone's safe and accounted for. And if we have to do an evacuation for certain people within the plume path, then we gotta make sure that that's accounted for. I assign accountability personnel to start roll calls and reconciliation because in a busy midday environment, people could be scattered across break areas, maintenance shops, and field operations. At the same time, I made a decision to shut down systems that could worsen exposures, including controlling access points, halting non essential operations, and coordinating with plant operators to isolate process flow where safe. My approach here was risk based. I was not trying to be heroic. I was just trying to be predictable and disciplined, protect people first, then stabilize the incident through trained operations, and obviously after that, property conservation. In this high risk chemical event, you can't rely on memory alone. I relied on three categories of references. First, the Emergency Response Guidebook, the ERG, heavily relied on it. We use the ERG to confirm immediate protective actions for chlorine and to guide initial isolation and protective distances, especially while more detailed facility specific information was being gathered. The ERG reinforced key points that shaped our early decisions. Isolate the area, remain upwind, use SCBA, um, avoid directing water at the leak source, and prevent runoff from spreading contamination. So, chlorine is obviously a very hazardous situation. Firefighters have to use some special firefighter foam to fight this fire if it was on fire. But in this case, it's a leak. Um, Special considerations are needed, especially SCBA and preventing runoff. Big considerations. Second, the safety data sheet and site-specific chemical safety procedures. The safety data sheet and our internal procedures provided details on the chlorine health effects, PPE considerations, and any facility installed mitigation equipment like the emergency shutdown procedures, isolation valves, or scrubbing systems. OSHA and NFPA aligned plans and frameworks. From the OSHA perspective, we leaned heavily on our emergency action plan for evacuation routes, alarm procedures, and accountability processes. We also leaned on the emergency response planning concepts consistent with hazmat response expectations, especially the need for organized roles, training alignment, and safe distances. From the NFPA standpoint, we used hazard identification concepts, response discipline, and established responder safety practices, including recognition of toxic inhalation hazards, the need for respiratory protection, and hot, warm, cold zone controls. All of this was under the ICS NIMS considerations, structure that prevents chaos when the incident is evolving minute by minute. My main support team members and the leadership skills I use to maximize their support. Major reason the event stayed controlled is because I built a functioning ICS coordination early instead of trying to manage everything myself. So I had my command staff, and I assigned roles pretty quickly. I had a safety officer. They focused solely on the responder safety, PPE decisions, entry control, and ensure there was no freelancing on the fire ground or the scene. This was critical with chlorine because a single poor decision can create multiple victims. I had a PIO. They managed the media. So when the media managed to make their way on the scene, they were able to um, ensure that they don't interrupt our operations and also maintain their safety as well. Mm. I also had a liaison officer. They coordinated with outside agencies, fire, EMS, hazmat, mutual aid, law enforcement, emergency management, any public health partners, pretty much any big entity that was getting involved with this event. Um, then I activated my core general staff operations. They managed the tactical work um, from isolating the scene, evacuating, setting up shelters, hazmat group coordinations, and the interface with plant operators who understood the equipment. So making sure that we had people on site that knew the equipment that was on scene. Planning section. They tracked the situation status, documented decisions, they projected incident needs, and supported action planning as new information arrived. Logistics section. They ensured resources, SCBA cylinders, monitoring equipment for environment, ensuring that the environment is safe to enter. Barriers, communications, rehab, water supply for fog streams if needed, if there was an actual fire on the scene. Staging areas. Um, so we had finance and admin. They tracked the costs, contractor resources, and documented response actions for follow-up reporting and claims. So they're pretty much keeping track of all the money. To maximize their support, I use several leadership skills intentionally. Clear intent and objectives. Clear intent and objectives. I gave simple, measurable objectives to protect life, account for personnel, establish zones, control plume impact, coordinate public messaging. Span of control discipline. I delegated, then held people accountable through brief updates rather than constant micromanaging. So everyone had their role. I didn't expect to, take care of everyone. They know their jobs. Calm, structured communications. I used short briefings, repeated key priorities, and confirmed an understanding with my staff. Um, Trusting qualified people. Like I said, I assigned roles based on competence, not rank alone. So they know their job, and I know that, they know that. Empowered them to execute within my intent. We also made sure that documentation and timestamping were captured. Major decisions and times were captured. This improves continuity, supports AARs, and protects the organization later. Leadership actions regarding the media during the high risk event. I did assign a PIO, so they should be ensuring that the media is taken care of in a safe place and can pass information. And because the media did arrive within minutes, I treated the public information as a safety function. Uh, Misinformation can cause panic and self deployment into a hazardous area. So had to make sure that everyone was accounted for and nobody was freelancing. Nobody was trying to be a hero, pretty much. My leadership actions were designating that PIO, single point of contact, did not allow multiple unofficial spokespeople. We established a media staging area in a safe location away from operational routes and outside, excuse me, and outside the hazard footprint. So reporters were not placed at risk or interfering with response operations. We provided regular scheduled updates rather than reacting to every camera and microphone. We communicated in a disciplined way, what we know, what we're doing, and what the public should do. We avoided speculation. If we didn't know something yet, we would say that we're not committed to giving a full breakdown until the investigation is complete and everything is verified. In a small town, I also recognize that reporters might be neighbors, acquaintances of employees. That increased the likelihood of rumors and emotionally charged reporting. So we stayed factual, calm, and consistent. Some key leadership strengths and skills I depended on in a small town. High emotions event, family were there. This incident had added an emotional load because family members were working on site and everyone understood that the community was close. What happened at the plant could impact homes, schools, businesses, you name it. The leadership strengths I relied on were command presence and emotional control. If I looked rushed or uncertain, the entire incident would feel unstable. Uh, Always ensured that there was empathy within boundaries. I acknowledged fear, concern. Sorry, I don't know why the camera. I acknowledged fear and concern, but I kept operational discipline. I did not allow emotional decisions to override safety principles. Decisiveness under uncertainty. Early decisions must be made with complete and incomplete information. So you're pretty much on the fly, but you got to make great decisions, safe decisions. I used established guidance, the ERG, safety data sheets, emergency action plan, ICS, to make defensible choices quickly, then adjusted as we learn more. Risk communications, I gave people clear actions, where to go, what to avoid, and what would happen next. Uh, strong accountability focus with 400 personnel and family, a lot of family ties. Accounting wasn't just procedural, it was personal. So we treated accountability as a life safety mission. Uh, we also prioritized responder safety. A common failure in chemical incidents is creating secondary victims. So you have to know what you're getting yourself into. If you don't know, say you don't have your SCBA on when you should, you don't know if the environment's safe. You walk into this environment without your SCBA, you're just creating another victim for someone else to rescue. The safety officer's authority was protected and supported, and entry into the hot zone was tightly controlled. I also made a point to manage convergence, people trying to rush towards the scene to find family members. We created a controlled reunification and information point away from operations, coordinated through HR and supervision so people weren't moving into danger. Key learnings and what I would do with those learnings. um, the most important lesson from this chlorine release was that speed matters, but structure matters more. Uh, as a my military background, we would always say slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Fast response without controls becomes chaos. A controlled response protects lives. Here are my key learnings and how I would apply them. Improve early detection and isolations capabilities. If the event exposed any delay in leak detection, alarm notification, or remote isolation, I would have pursued upgrades and preventative maintenance improvements. Number two, strengthen accountability systems for large headcounts. We would enhance rosters, badge reconciliation, sweep procedures, and supervisor accountability to confirm everyone is out. If we can find a roster, timesheets, whoever was on the clock, we would ensure that we had a check sheet, getting all the names to ensure that everyone's out. Increase realism in drills. We would run exercises that include midday conditions, rumor controls, family convergence, and rapid media arrival because those factors are real and they change the scene. Number four, enhance public protective action planning. In small communities, the difference between shelter in place and evacuation guidance must be clear, fast, and coordinated with local emergency management. Number five, formalize after action learning. We would complete an after action review, update our procedures, and train changes back into the organization. Because lessons don't change, systems get forgotten. In summary, this incident had the potential to become catastrophic due to the chlorine's toxicity, the size of the workforce, and the small town setting, and the rapid media presence. We prevented fatalities by applying disciplined incident command, prioritizing life safety, using established guidance like the ERG, the safety data sheets, building an ICS structure early, managing information carefully, and balancing empathy with firm operational control. That combination, preparedness, structure, and leadership, all of those factors, they help protect the workforce, the community, and the environment, as well as the facility from further damages. Thank you for your time.